The train lurched to a stop at Tahlequah Station in the Cherokee Nation of Indian Territory, and Winona Edwards gripped her walking stick tighter, her other hand clutching the carpetbag that held everything she owned in this world. She had not seen the landscape rush by during the 3-day journey from Philadelphia, would never see the red dirt roads of this frontier town, would never glimpse the face of the man who had answered her advertisement with promises of a good home and honest work as his wife. The conductor took her elbow gently. "Miss Edwards, we have arrived. Your intended wrote that he would meet you on the platform." "Thank you," Winona said, her voice steadier than her racing heart. The year was 1882, and she was 22 years old, blind since birth, and about to marry a stranger because her aunt had died and left her with no means of support in a city that had no use for a woman who could not see. The conductor helped her down the steps, and she stood on the wooden platform, feeling the late September heat against her face, smelling dust and horses and something else, something wild and open that she had never encountered in Philadelphia's cramped streets. She waited, listening to the shuffle of feet, the calls of men loading cargo, the snort of horses. "Miss Edwards," a male voice, uncertain, younger than she expected. "Yes. Are you Quinton?" "No, madam. I am afraid there has been some trouble. My name is Horace Jenkins. I work for the general store. Quinton Hayes asked me to fetch you and bring you to Doc Miller's office." Winona's fingers tightened on her stick. "What kind of trouble?" "He got himself thrown from a horse yesterday. Broke his leg real bad, madam. He is asking for you, though. Says the wedding can still happen. Just might have to wait a week or two until he can stand." Relief and anxiety warred in Winona's chest. She had prepared herself for many possibilities during the long journey, but not this. "Please, take me to him." Horace guided her to a wagon, helped her up onto the seat, and they rolled through streets that she mapped in her mind by sound. The clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the low voices of men outside what must be a saloon, the rustle of skirts as women passed, their conversations dropping to whispers as the wagon went by. "They are staring, are they not?" Winona asked. Horace cleared his throat. "Folks here are not accustomed to strangers, madam, and if you do not mind my saying, you are mighty pretty. They would stare anyway." The wagon stopped, and Horace helped her down and into a building that smelled of carbolic and something bitter medicinal. A door opened, and she heard a groan. "Mr. Hayes," she asked, come in, come in." An older man's voice, brisk and professional. "I am Dr. Miller." "Your intended is here, Miss Edwards, though I have given him laudanum for the pain, so he may not be entirely lucid." Winona entered, and Horace guided her to a chair beside what must be a bed. She heard labored breathing, smelled sweat and the same bitter medicine scent. "Miss Edwards." The voice was slurred, rough. "You came." "Of course I came. We had an arrangement. I am sorry. Supposed to meet you proper. Look at me now, busted up like an old fool." Dr. Miller spoke from across the room. "Mr. Hayes will recover, but he will be laid up for some time. The leg was badly broken, and at his age, healing takes longer." "My age?" Winona asked carefully. "I am 61, Quinton said, and Winona felt her stomach drop. His letters had not mentioned his age. She had assumed someone near her own years, perhaps 10 years older at most. "I see." The words came automatically, though she saw nothing, would never see anything. "I know what you are thinking." Quinton's voice grew stronger, urgent despite the laudanum. "I should have told you, but I am a good man, Miss Edwards. I have a ranch, 200 acres, cattle, horses. I would have been a good husband to you, would have taken care of you proper." "Would have been," a long silence. "Then, a woman like you deserve better than a broken-down old cowboy. I release you from our agreement. Doc Miller will find you a place to stay until you can get passage back east." Winona sat very still. Back east to what? Her aunt's boarding house had been sold to pay debts. She had no family, no prospects, no way to support herself in a city where even sighted women struggled to find decent work. She had come to Indian Territory with hope, had imagined a partnership, perhaps even affection growing over time, but 61 years old and broken. "I need some air," she said quietly. "Dr. Miller, might I sit outside for a moment?" "Of course. There is a bench just to the right of the door." Horace helped the lady. The afternoon sun warmed her face as she sat on the bench, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of this frontier town. Footsteps approached, boots on wood, a measured stride. "You are the mail-order bride." It was not a question. The voice was male, younger, with a quality that made her think of deep water, quiet strength. "I suppose I am, though it seems there will be no wedding after all. Quinton is a good man. This is bad luck for him. Did you know he did not tell me his age?" A pause. "That was wrong of him. But he is lonely. His wife died 5 years back. He thought no woman would answer if he told the truth. He was likely right." Winona tilted her face toward the voice. "And who are you?" "Quade Harrison. I work at Quinton's ranch. Have for 3 years now." "Well, Mr. Harrison, it seems you will not have to accommodate a new mistress after all. I will be returning to Philadelphia as soon as arrangements can be made." Another pause, longer this time. "Do you want to go back?" The question struck something deep inside her. Winona thought of Philadelphia, the cramped room she had shared with her aunt, the pitying voices of church ladies who brought charity baskets, the endless monotony of days spent doing piecework she could manage by touch alone, earning barely enough for bread. "No," she whispered. "But I cannot marry a man 40 years my senior. I know I am in no position to be particular, Mr. Harrison, but that is beyond what I can accept." "That is fair." The bench creaked as he sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "What will you do in Philadelphia?" "I do not know. I have no family there, no prospects. I was a foolish girl to hope for something better out here, I suppose." "Hope is not foolish." His voice was earnest. "This is a hard land, but it is also a place where people can start fresh, where what you can do matters more than what you cannot." "Pretty words, but what can I do, Mr. Harrison? I am blind. I cannot see to cook, to clean, to do any of the things a wife should do. I can do needlework by touch, but there is not much call for that on a cattle ranch, I imagine." "Can you ride?" The question was so unexpected that Winona almost laughed. "Ride a horse? Certainly not. Could you learn?" "Why would I need to learn to ride a horse when I am going back to Philadelphia? Maybe you are not." Quade's voice was thoughtful. "Quinton is hurt, but the ranch still needs running. I can handle the cattle and the hands, but there is the house, the books, the accounts. His late wife used to manage all that. Since she passed, it has been a mess. Bills unpaid, supplies ordered twice or not at all. Can you cipher?" "I can count, if that is what you mean. I learned mathematics by memory and verbal instruction. And reading and writing. I can read and write in Braille, a system of raised dots, but I doubt that helps you." "What if someone read the accounts to you and you kept track in your head, told them what to write down?" Winona frowned. "Are you suggesting I work at the ranch?" "I am suggesting you stay. Not as Quinton's wife, but as his housekeeper and bookkeeper. He can pay you wages. You would have room and board, and if you decide you do not like it, you can leave. But at least you would not be going back to nothing." It was absurd, it was improper, it was also the only offer she had. "I would need to speak with Mr. Hayes about this, of course. But think on it. The ranch is called the Double H, 5 miles outside town. It is good land, Miss Edwards, and you might find you like it here." Quade stood, and his footsteps retreated. Winona sat in the sun, her mind racing. She had come here for marriage, for security, for a chance at a different life. The marriage seemed impossible now, but perhaps the different life was still within reach. When Dr. Miller called her back inside an hour later, Quinton was more alert, the laudanum wearing off enough for clearer speech. "I have been thinking, Mr. Hayes," Winona said as she settled into the chair. "Mr. Harrison suggested I might work for you instead of marrying you. As a housekeeper and to help with your accounts." Quade said that. Quinton's voice held surprise. "That boy has more sense than I gave him credit for. Would such an arrangement be acceptable to you, Miss Edwards? I will be honest, I need the help. The ranch has been falling apart without a woman's hand, and I am no good with numbers. But people will talk. An unmarried woman living at her ranch with cowboys." People talked in Philadelphia, too. They pitied me, which was worse than gossip would be. At least here I might be useful. Quinton was quiet for a long moment. "All right, we will try it. Room and board, and I will pay you $20 a month. That is fair wages for a housekeeper who can keep books. Quade can bring you out to the ranch when Doc Miller says I am ready to be moved. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Call me Quinton. We may not be marrying, but we will be working together. Might as well be friendly." 3 days later, Winona sat beside Quinton in a wagon driven by Quade Harrison, rolling out of Tahlequah toward the Double H Ranch. Quinton's leg was splinted and propped on blankets, and he dozed fitfully as the wagon bounced over the rutted road. "The road is rough," Quade said quietly. "Trying to miss the worst holes, but there are a lot of them after the last rain." "How far is the ranch?" "About 5 miles from town." "We are heading northwest. The land out here is beautiful, Miss Edwards. Rolling hills, lots of trees. This time of year, the leaves are starting to turn." "What colors are they?" Quade was silent for a moment, and Winona wondered if she had made him uncomfortable. People often did not know how to talk to her about seeing. "Well," he said slowly, "the oaks are still mostly green, but they are getting tinges of brown at the edges. The elms are going yellow like butter, bright in the sunlight. And there are a few maples scattered about, and they are starting to turn red. Not the deep red they will be in another week or two, but a softer red, like a blush on a woman's cheek." Winona smiled. "That is a very thorough description, Mr. Harrison. Quade, please. And I figured if you are going to live out here, you might want to know what it looks like." "I would. Thank you." They rode in companionable silence for a while. Winona listened to the creak of the wagon wheels, the steady clop of the horses' hooves, the rustle of wind through grass and leaves. The air smelled different from Philadelphia, cleaner somehow, with notes of earth and growing things. "Tell me about the ranch," she said. "How many people live there?" "Besides Quinton, there are 4 hands who live in the bunkhouse. We run about 300 head of cattle right now. The house is a good size, built of logs with a stone chimney. There is a main room with a fireplace, a kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a loft. You would have one of the bedrooms. Quinton will use the other once he is healed enough, but for now, we will set up a bed for him in the main room so he does not have to manage stairs." "Stairs to the loft. But you will not need to go up there. That is where Quinton's late wife kept storage, old trunks and such." "And where will you sleep?" "In the bunkhouse with the other hands. Dutch, Santos, Tommy, and me. You are the foreman. I suppose I am now, with Quinton laid up. I am 26, Miss Edwards. Been working ranches since I was 15. I know cattle and horses, and I know this land." 26, Winona repeated. "I am 22, I know. Quinton showed me your letters." "Did he show you his letters to me?" "He did. I told him he should mention his age, but he was afraid." "He was right to be afraid. I would not have come if I had known." "And that would have been a shame." Quade's voice was warm. "I think you are going to like it here." The wagon turned, and Quade said, "We are coming up the drive now. The house is about a 1/4 mile ahead." When they stopped, Quade came around to help Winona down. His hands were strong and calloused, gentle as he guided her. "There are 3 steps up to the porch. The door is solid oak, opens inward. Mind your head on the frame." Inside, the house smelled of wood smoke and dust and faintly of something sour like old food. "It needs a good cleaning," Quade admitted. "We have been batching it and we are not much for housekeeping." "I can clean," Winona said. "I will need someone to show me where things are, but once I know the layout I can manage." While Quade and another hand, Dutch, got Quinton settled on a bed they had set up near the fireplace, Winona stood in the center of the main room and slowly turned, listening to the space, feeling the dimensions. Later, after Quinton was resting and the hands had gone back to work, Quade walked Winona through the house. He took her hand and guided it to the edge of the table, showed her the number of steps from the table to the fireplace, from the fireplace to the kitchen, from the kitchen to her bedroom door. The bedroom has a bed against the far wall, a dresser to the left of the door, a washstand to the right. There is a window over the bed. It faces east so you get morning sun. I will not see it, but I will feel the warmth. Yes, Quade's voice was quiet. I put fresh linens on the bed, well, as fresh as we have. They are clean anyway. Thank you, Quade. He led her back to the main room where Quinton was awake and watching them. "She has good sense," Quinton said. "Learns quick." "I will need to learn the kitchen tomorrow," Winona said. "Where things are kept, what supplies we have." "Quade can help with that," Quinton said. "He is the best cook among the hands, which is not saying much, but he knows his way around the stove." That night, Winona lay in her new bed, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch. Cattle lowing in the distance, the wind sighing through the trees, the creak of the house settling. She thought of Philadelphia, of the narrow room above her aunt's parlor, of the sounds of carriages on cobblestones and vendors calling their wares. This was so different, so strange, but also, somehow, already beginning to feel like it might be home. The next morning, Quade arrived at the house before sunrise. Winona was already awake, sitting on the edge of her bed, unsure how to navigate the unfamiliar space in the dark. "Miss Edwards." His voice came from the main room. "I brought coffee and some breakfast from the bunkhouse. Thought we could go over the kitchen once you have eaten." Winona made her way carefully to the main room, counting steps, trailing her fingers along the wall. Quade guided her to a chair at the table. "It is not fancy," he said. "Just biscuits and gravy, but it is hot." The food was simple and good, better than Winona had expected. "You made this?" "Yes, madam. I can teach you how if you like. The stove is tricky, but once you get a feel for it, it is not so hard." After breakfast, Quade spent 2 hours walking Winona through the kitchen. He opened every cupboard, let her feel the contents, described what was there. Flour, sugar, coffee, dried beans, salt pork, cornmeal. The stove was a massive iron beast, and Quade guided her hands over it, showing her the firebox, the cooking surface, the oven. "You will need to keep the fire fed," he said. "I can show you how to tell the temperature by holding your hand over the surface, counting how long you can hold it there." "That seems dangerous." "It can be, but you will learn, and I will be around to help until you are comfortable." Over the following weeks, Winona settled into life at the Double H Ranch. Quade was patient, endlessly so, teaching her to cook on the big stove, to find her way around the house, to manage the daily tasks of running a household. She learned to make biscuits and gravy, to fry salt pork and boil coffee, to bake bread in the temperamental oven. Quinton healed slowly, fretting from his bed about the work that needed doing. Winona began sitting with him in the evenings, and he would tell her about the ranch, about which cattle needed moving, which fences needed mending, which bills needed paying. She kept it all organized in her mind, creating mental ledgers that she could recall with perfect clarity. "You have a head for numbers," Quinton said one evening. "Better than mine ever was. I have to remember things, Winona said. I cannot write them down to look at later. Still, it is a gift. October arrived, bringing cooler temperatures and brilliant autumn colors that Winona could not see, but that Quade described to her, whenever he had the chance. He fell into the habit of stopping by the house each morning before heading out to work, sharing coffee with her and Quinton, telling them about the sunrise. "The sky is pink this morning," he said one day in mid-October. "Soft pink, like the inside of a shell. And the sun is just starting to peek over the hills, making everything glow golden." "You have a poet's soul, Quade," Quinton said with a chuckle. "Never knew that about you. Well, Miss Edwards should know what she is missing." "I am not missing it," Winona said quietly. "Not when you describe it like that." After Quade left for the day, Quinton was silent for a long time. Then he said, "He is sweet on you, you know." Winona felt heat rise in her cheeks. "That is absurd." "Is it? He never used to talk about sunrises before you came. Now every morning he is going on about the colors and the light, and he watches you when you are working, making sure you are safe, ready to help if you need it. He is being kind. I am blind, Quinton. People help me because they pity me." "That boy does not pity you. He admires you." "There is a difference." Winona did not answer, but her mind turned over Quinton's words as she went about her work. Did Quade have feelings for her? And if he did, what did she feel in return? She had grown comfortable with him in a way she had not expected. His voice had become familiar, welcome. She liked his descriptions of the world, the way he made her feel included rather than excluded. She liked his quiet strength, his patience, his gentle humor. But love, that seemed too much to hope for. She was a blind mail-order bride who had not even managed to secure the marriage she had come for. What would a capable, hard-working cowboy want with someone like her? 2 weeks later, on a cool evening in late October, everything changed. Quinton had finally been allowed to sit up in a chair for short periods, and he insisted on sitting at the table for supper. Winona had made a venison stew from a deer that Dutch had shot, and the 4 ranch hands joined them, crowding around the table in the warm glow of lamplight. The conversation was easy, full of good-natured ribbing and stories from the day's work. Winona sat quietly, listening, feeling more content than she had in years. Then Tommy, the youngest hand at 19, said, "Miss Edwards, can I ask you something?" "I do not mean to be rude, but I have been wondering. What is it like being blind?" The table fell silent. Winona heard Quade's sharp intake of breath, heard Quinton start to speak, probably to scold Tommy for his forwardness. "It is all right," Winona said quickly. "I do not mind the question. The truth is, I do not know what it is like to see, so I cannot compare. I was born this way. For me, the world is sound and touch and smell and taste. It is the creak of the floorboards that tells me someone is walking nearby. It is the smell of coffee that tells me morning has come. It is the warmth of sun on my face that tells me the weather is fine." "But do you miss it?" Tommy pressed. "Seeing, I mean. How can I miss what I never had? I suppose I wonder sometimes what things look like, colors especially. People try to describe them, but I do not think I truly understand." "What color do you wonder about most?" This was Santos, the oldest hand, his voice thoughtful. Winona considered. "Sunrise, I think. Everyone speaks of sunrise with such wonder. I would like to understand what makes it so special." Quade's chair scraped back. "Come outside with me." "What?" "It will be sunrise in about 20 minutes. Come outside and I will describe it properly, not just the colors but all of it." Winona stood, and Quade took her arm, guiding her to the door and out onto the porch. The morning air was cold against her face, sharp with the promise of winter. "The sky is still dark," Quade said softly. "Stars are out, thousands of them like diamonds scattered on black velvet. The moon is setting in the west, a thin crescent, pale as cream. The hills are just dark shapes against the sky, waiting. They stood in silence for a few minutes. Winona heard the cattle stirring, heard a bird begin to sing, tentative at first, then more confident. "There," Quade said. "Do you hear that? The birds know it is coming before we see it. That is a meadowlark singing to greet the day. It is beautiful, it is. And now look toward the east." "Well, not you, but if you could see, that is where you would look. The sky is starting to change. The black is fading to deep blue, the color of sapphires, and right at the edge of the hills there is a line of pale gray, like smoke." Winona turned her face toward the east, imagining what Quade described. "The gray is brightening to silver now," Quade continued. "And above it, the blue is getting lighter, softer. And now there is a hint of pink, just a whisper of it, like someone took a rose petal and brushed it across the sky." His voice was low, intimate, and Winona realized he had moved closer to her, was standing near enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "The pink is spreading," he said, "flowing across the sky like watercolor on paper. And now there is orange too, bright orange, the color of pumpkins and autumn leaves. It is mixing with the pink, creating shades that do not have names." Winona felt the first warmth of the sun touch her face, and she smiled. "There," Quade said, and his voice was full of wonder. "That is what I was waiting for. Your smile. The sun is just starting to peek over the hills now, Miss Edwards. It is so bright I can barely look at it. It is gold, pure gold, and it is turning everything it touches to gold too. The grass, the trees, the fence posts, even you. You are glowing in the sunrise, and you are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." Winona's breath caught. She turned toward Quade, toward the sound of his voice. "Quade, I know I should not speak this way. You came here to marry Quinton, and I am just a ranch hand. But Winona, I cannot help it. I have been falling for you since the day I met you on that platform in Tahlequah. The way you held your head high even though you were afraid. The way you did not give up when things did not go as planned. The way you have made this house a home. The way you have learned everything we have thrown at you without complaining. You are brave and smart and kind, and I am in love with you." Winona felt tears prick her eyes. "I am blind, Quade. I will always be blind. I cannot see the sunrises you describe. I cannot see your face. I will always need help, always be dependent." "You are the least dependent person I know," Quade said fiercely. "You do everything yourself that you can, and you only ask for help when you truly need it. And as for not seeing my face, maybe that is for the best. I am nothing special to look at. But I can be your eyes, Winona. I can describe the world to you every day for the rest of our lives if you will let me. I can tell you about sunrises and sunsets, about the color of flowers in spring and the snow in winter. I can be whatever you need me to be if you will just give me a chance. What about Quinton? Quinton knows how I feel. I asked him last week if I could court you proper-like. He gave me his blessing. Said he is grateful it worked out this way because he can see we are better suited than you and he ever would have been." Winona reached out and her hand found Quade's chest, felt the steady beat of his heart beneath her palm. "I am afraid." "Of what?" "Of hoping too much. Of being hurt. Of being a burden." Quade's hand covered hers, warm and strong. "You could never be a burden, and I will never hurt you, Winona. I swear it on everything I hold sacred." "I think I am falling in love with you too," Winona whispered. "I think I have been for weeks, but I was afraid to admit it." Quade made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes." His lips were gentle on hers, tentative at first, then more certain. Winona leaned into the kiss, into him, and felt something inside her that had been tight and fearful begin to unfold. This was right. This was what she had come to Indian Territory hoping to find, not with Quinton, but with this man who saw past her blindness to who she truly was. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Winona was smiling. "Tell me what you look like," she said. Quade laughed. "I am about 6 feet tall, lean but strong from ranch work. I have brown hair, too long, always falling in my eyes. My eyes are hazel, more green than brown. I have a scar on my chin from where I got kicked by a horse when I was 12. I have a crooked nose from breaking it in a fight when I was 15 and too stupid to walk away. I am nothing fancy, Winona, but I am yours if you will have me." "I will have you," Winona said. Scar and crooked nose and all, over the following months Quade courted Winona properly. He came to the house every evening after work, and they sat on the porch together, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about his life, about growing up in Missouri, about how he had come to Indian Territory looking for adventure and found a home instead. Winona told him about Philadelphia, about her childhood, about the loneliness of being different, of being pitied. She told him about her aunt, who had been kind but weary, who had seen Winona as an obligation rather than a joy. "You are a joy," Quade said fiercely. "Anyone who cannot see that is a fool." Quinton watched their courtship with satisfaction. His leg healed slowly, and by December he was able to walk with a cane. He took over more of the ranch work again, but he insisted that Winona continue managing the household and the books. "You are better at it than I ever was," he admitted. "And I like having someone to talk to in the evenings." Christmas came, and the ranch hands pooled their money to buy Winona a gift. A beautiful wool shawl, soft as clouds, dyed in what Quade told her was deep blue. "The color of the sky just before sunrise," he said as he draped it around her shoulders. Winona gave Quade a pair of leather gloves she had made herself, stitching them carefully by feel, determined to create something useful. "They are perfect," Quade said, and she heard the emotion in his voice. "No one has made me something with their own hands before." On New Year's Day, 1883, Quade asked Winona to marry him. They were sitting on the porch, wrapped in blankets against the cold, watching the sun set. Well, Quade was watching. Winona was listening to him describe the colors. "The sky is on fire," he said. "Orange and red and purple, all blazing together like God decided to paint with every bright color at once. It sounds magnificent. It is, but not as magnificent as you." Quade took her hand. "Winona Edwards, I love you more than I knew it was possible to love another person. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life describing the world to you and learning from you and building a life together?" "Yes," Winona said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, Quade Harrison, I will marry you." They were wed in March of 1883 in Tahlequah, in a small ceremony attended by Quinton, the ranch hands, and a few friends from town. Winona wore a simple dress that Quade told her was the color of cream, and she carried a bouquet of wildflowers that smelled of spring and new beginnings. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife, Quade kissed her thoroughly, and Winona heard the ranch hands whooping and hollering their approval. That night, in the cabin Quade had built for them on the Double H land, a wedding gift from Quinton, Quade carried Winona over the threshold. "Welcome home, Mrs. Harrison," he said. "Tell me what it looks like." Quade described every detail. The log walls chinked with mud, the stone fireplace, the bed he had built with his own hands, the rag rug on the floor, the rocking chair in the corner. "It is simple," he said, "but it is ours. It is perfect." Their first year of marriage was both challenging and joyful. Winona learned to manage their small household, to cook on the wood stove, to keep their home clean and comfortable. Quade worked long days on the ranch but always came home to her, always took time to describe the sunset, to tell her about his day, to hold her and make her feel cherished. In the spring of 1884, Winona realized she was pregnant. She told Quad one evening as they sat on their porch, and he whooped so loud that the cattle stirred in alarm. "A baby," he kept saying. "We are going to have a baby. Are you happy?" "Happy, Winona, I am beyond happy. I am so grateful I do not have words for it." Their son was born in December of 1884, in the middle of a snowstorm that blanketed the ranch in white. Quad described the snow to Winona while the midwife worked, his voice steady and calm even though she could hear the fear beneath it. "It is coming down thick and fast," he said, "covering everything in white, clean and pure. The world looks brand new, Winona, just like our world is about to be." When the baby finally came, squalling and healthy, Quad placed him in Winona's arms. "He is perfect," Quad said, his voice choked with tears. "He has your nose, I think. And a good set of lungs. What color are his eyes?" "Blue right now, but all babies have blue eyes at first. We will see what color they turn." They named him Quincy Harrison after both Quinton and Quad, and the old rancher was so touched he cried when they told him. Quincy's eyes eventually turned hazel like his father's, and as he grew, Quad would describe every milestone to Winona. The first smile, the first time he rolled over, the first time he sat up on his own. "He is reaching for you," Quad would say. "He knows his mama." When Quincy was 2, Winona became pregnant again. Their daughter, Willa, was born in the autumn of 1887 during harvest time. She came quickly, with less fuss than her brother, and Quad swore she smiled at him the moment she was born. "She is going to be trouble," he said fondly. "I can already tell." He was right. Willa was bright and bold, always getting into mischief, always testing boundaries. But she was also tender-hearted, and from the time she could walk, she would take her mother's hand and guide her carefully, chattering constantly about what she saw. "The sky is blue, Mama. Really, really blue. And there is a bird, a red one, and flowers, yellow flowers." Winona's heart swelled every time her children described the world to her, carrying on their father's tradition. Quincy grew tall and strong, learning ranch work from Quad and Quinton. He had his father's patience and his mother's quick mind, and by the time he was 10, he was keeping the ranch books alongside Winona, learning the business side of ranching. The years passed in a rhythm of seasons: spring brandings, summer drives, autumn harvests, winter snows. Quad never stopped describing the world to Winona. Every sunrise, every sunset, every change of season, he painted pictures with his words until Winona felt she could almost see it herself. Quinton lived to see Quincy turn 15, and Willa turned 12, before he passed peacefully in his sleep in the spring of 1897. He left the Double H Ranch to Quad and Winona in his will, saying they had earned it 100 times over. "You gave me family when I thought I would die alone," he had told them not long before the end. "This ranch should be yours, make it flourish." And they did. Under Quad's management and Winona's careful bookkeeping, the Double H prospered. They expanded the herd, bought more land, hired more hands. Quincy grew into a fine young man, taking on more and more responsibility, eventually marrying a sweet-natured girl from Tahlequah and bringing her to live on the ranch. Willa, true to her independent spirit, decided she wanted to be a teacher. She went to the new Cherokee Female Seminary and studied hard, eventually returning to Tahlequah to teach at the local school. On a warm evening in the summer of 1905, Quad and Winona sat on the porch of their cabin, now expanded and improved over the years, but still the same home where they had started their married life. Their grandchildren, Quincy's twins, were playing in the yard, their laughter carrying on the breeze. "Tell me about the sunset," Winona said, as she had said 1,000 times before. Quad took her hand, his fingers lacing through hers with the ease of long familiarity. "The sky is painted in shades of gold and rose tonight. The clouds are lit from underneath, glowing like embers. The sun is just touching the hills, making long shadows across the grass. It is beautiful, but not as beautiful as you. After all these years, you still say such things. After all these years, I still mean them. Quade raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. You know what I realized today? What? If Quinton had not fallen off that horse, if he had met you at the train station like he planned, we might never have found each other. Everything that went wrong turned out to be right in the end. Winona smiled. I think I knew, even that first day, that something good was going to come from the disaster. I could hear it in your voice when you spoke to me on the platform. Kindness without pity. I had never heard that before. You taught me to see the world differently, Quade said. All these years of describing things to you, it made me pay attention in ways I never did before, made me notice the beauty in small moments. You gave me that gift, Winona. And you gave me the world, Winona said softly. Every sunrise, every sunset, every detail of our children growing up. You gave me sight through your eyes. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun sank lower, painting the sky in ever-changing colors. Inside the house, Winona could hear Quincy's wife starting supper, could hear the twins' laughter growing louder as they chased each other. You ever regret it? Quade asked quietly. Coming all the way to Indian Territory to marry a stranger. Not for a single moment. I came looking for security, for a place to belong. I found so much more than that. I found love and family and home. I found you. I am the one who got lucky, Quade said. A blind mail-order bride steps off a train, and somehow she sees past all my rough edges and decides I am worth loving. There are no rough edges, Winona said firmly. There is only the man who described the sunrise until I smiled, and kept describing the world until I saw it through his eyes. The man who loved me not despite my blindness but including it, as just one part of who I am. You are everything, Quade Harrison. Everything I ever hoped for and more than I knew to dream of. Quade pulled her close, and they watched the sunset together, him seeing it with his eyes, her seeing it through his words. Both of them wrapped in the kind of love that grows deeper and stronger with each passing year. The sky faded from gold to pink to purple, and the first stars began to appear. Their grandchildren were called inside for supper, and the ranch settled into its evening quiet. Somewhere a calf lowed for its mother, and somewhere a horse whinnied. The wind sighed through the trees, carrying the scent of summer grass and wildflowers. The stars are coming out, Quade said. Thousands of them, like someone scattered diamonds across black velvet. You said that on our first sunrise together, Winona remembered, when you described the sky before dawn. Did I? I suppose some things do not change. The stars are always beautiful, and I am always in love with you. Winona leaned her head against Quade's shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart, the warmth of his arm around her. Tell me one more thing, anything. Tell me about tomorrow's sunrise, Quade laughed softly. I cannot tell you what it will look like. It has not happened yet. Then tell me you will be there to describe it. Tell me there will be another morning and another, with you beside me, painting the world with your words. I will be there, Quade promised. Every sunrise, every sunset, every moment in between. For as long as I draw breath, I will be there to describe the world to you, to love you, to walk beside you. That is my vow, Winona, today and always. They sat on their porch as the night deepened, surrounded by the sounds of the ranch they had built together, the family they had created, the life they had forged from what had seemed like disaster but turned out to be destiny. The blind mail-order bride and the cowboy who taught her to see with her heart had found something rare and precious. A love that transcended sight, that grew stronger with each passing season, that would endure as long as the prairie stretched wide and the sun rose over the hills of Indian Territory. Inside the house, their family gathered for the evening meal, their voices rising and falling in easy conversation. The ranch hands would be heading to the bunkhouse soon, tired from a day's work but satisfied. The cattle were settled for the night, and the horses dozed in the barn. Everything was as it should be. "Ready to go inside?" Quade asked. "In a moment. I want to feel the evening a little longer." So they sat hand in hand while the night wrapped around them like a blanket. The air cooled and crickets began their evening song. A nightingale called from somewhere in the distance, its song sweet and pure. "That is a nightingale," Quade said. "People say they sing to the moon. What does the moon look like tonight?" "It is full and bright silver-white, hanging low in the eastern sky. It is so bright it is casting shadows, making the ranch look like something from a dream." "This is a dream," Winona said. "The best kind, the kind you wake up from and realize it is real." They went inside together, Quade guiding Winona with the ease of long practice, though she knew the house so well now she could navigate it in her sleep. They joined their family at the table, and Quade said grace over the meal, thanking God for blessings too numerous to count. As they ate, the conversation flowed around Winona in familiar patterns. Quincy talking about the new foals, his wife discussing the vegetable garden, the twins begging for a story before bed. It was ordinary and precious, the stuff of daily life that becomes extraordinary when you have the wisdom to recognize it. After supper, after the dishes were washed and put away, after the twins had been tucked into bed and Quincy and his wife had gone to their own cabin, Quade and Winona prepared for bed in the quiet intimacy of their room. "Happy?" Quade asked as they settled under the quilts Winona had made, stitched with careful fingers from scraps of fabric, each square a memory. "Beyond happy," Winona said. "Content, grateful, blessed. All of those things," Quade agreed. "And in love, always in love." He pulled her close, and Winona rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the sound that had become home to her. "Quade. Thank you for seeing me. Not my blindness, not my limitations. Me, the person I am inside. Thank you for giving me a chance when you had no reason to." "I had every reason to," Quade said. "From the moment I saw you standing on that platform, chin up, shoulders straight, facing a future you could not see with more courage than most people show in their whole lives, I knew you were someone special. Loving you has been the easiest thing I have ever done, Winona. You make it easy." She fell asleep in his arms, safe and loved and home, and dreamed of colors she would never see but understood through the poetry of her husband's words. She dreamed of sunrises painted in pink and gold, of skies the color of sapphires, of autumn leaves blushing red. She dreamed in Quade's voice, describing a world made beautiful not by what could be seen, but by how it was experienced together. The years continued to unfold like the seasons, each bringing its own joys and challenges. There were hard winters when snow piled high and supplies ran low. There were droughts that tested their resources and their faith. There were losses, friends who passed, neighbors who moved away, the inevitable sorrows that come with a life fully lived. But through it all, Quade and Winona had each other. Every morning he described the sunrise. Every evening he described the sunset. In between, he described their life in words that made her see not just the physical world but the beauty in the life they had built together. When Quincy took over full management of the ranch, Quade and Winona spent their days in easier pursuits. They sat on the porch and talked for hours. They walked the land together, Quade guiding her carefully, describing everything they passed. They played with their grandchildren and, eventually, their great-grandchildren, Quade describing the young one's antics with humor and affection. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1908, their children and grandchildren threw them a party. Half of Tahlequah seemed to turn out, friends and neighbors filling the ranch with laughter and music and celebration. "Tell me what it looks like," Winona said to Quade as they stood together on the porch, listening to the festivities. "It looks like love," Quade said simply. "The yard is full of people who care about us, who came to celebrate what we have built together. The tables are loaded with food, and the children are running wild, and someone is playing a fiddle, and couples are dancing in the grass. It looks like community and family and joy. It looks like we did something right, Winona." "We did," Winona agreed. "We loved each other and we built a life on that foundation. What could be more right?" They danced together that evening, Quade carefully guiding Winona through the steps, and she felt like a young bride again, full of hope and dreams and the certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. Time moved on as it always does. The new century brought changes to Indian Territory. In 1907, Oklahoma became a state, and the Cherokee Nation's sovereignty diminished. The world was changing, modernizing, but on the Double H Ranch, some things remained constant. The cattle still needed tending, the seasons still turned, and Quade still described the sunrise to Winona every morning. In the spring of 1920, when Winona was 60 and Quade was 64, they took a trip to Tahlequah together. It was a warm April day, and they walked down the main street arm in arm, visiting the shops, greeting old friends. "The town has grown so much," Quade said. "There are automobiles now, can you hear them? And the buildings are bigger, made of brick instead of wood, but the heart of it is the same. People still know their neighbors. They still help each other." They stopped for lunch at a small restaurant, and a young woman served them, calling Quade sir, and Winona madam with respectful courtesy. After they ate, they walked to the train station, the place where they had first met all those years ago. "Tell me what it looks like now," Winona said. Quade described the station, bigger now, with a proper platform and a covered waiting area. He described the trains, sleeker and faster than the ones from their youth. But he also described what had not changed: the red dirt roads leading away from town, the hills in the distance, the wide Oklahoma sky. "You remember that first day?" Winona asked. "When you came to fetch me because Quinton was injured. I remember everything about that day. I remember thinking I had never heard a voice like yours, calm and dignified even though you must have been terrified. I remember the way you held your walking stick, the way you tilted your head when you listened. I remember thinking that Quinton was a lucky man. And then thinking you could be luckier," Quade laughed. "Maybe. Eventually. I tried not to think that way at first. It seemed disrespectful. But then I got to know you, and I could not help how I felt. I am glad you could not help it. I am glad you took a chance on a blind mail-order bride who could not even manage to marry the man she came for. You married exactly the man you were meant to," Quade said firmly. "I have believed that from the beginning. We were meant to find each other, Winona. All the twists and turns that brought us together, they were not accidents. They were providence." They walked home slowly, savoring the spring afternoon, the warmth of the sun, the scent of flowers blooming. When they reached their cabin, Quade helped Winona up the porch steps, and they settled into their rocking chairs, the same chairs they had sat in for decades. "Tell me about the sunset," Winona said. Quade reached for her hand, and his fingers were not as strong as they once were, his skin papery with age, but his touch was still the same, gentle, loving, sure. "The sky is turning gold," he said. "That deep, rich gold that makes everything look precious. The clouds are catching fire, glowing red and orange and pink. The sun is sinking behind the hills, and its light is streaming out in rays, like God is reaching down to touch the earth. It is beautiful, Winona. Every sunset is beautiful, but this one especially so. Why especially? Because I am watching it with you. That makes every moment beautiful. They sat together as the sun sank and the stars came out, and Winona thought about the long, winding road that had brought her to this moment. The fear and uncertainty of leaving Philadelphia, the disappointment of finding Quinton so different from what she had expected, the terror and hope of accepting a job instead of a marriage. The slow, sweet unfolding of love with Quade, the building of a life together, the family they had created, the legacy they would leave. It had not been an easy road, but it had been a good one. She had known sorrow and hardship, but she had known far more joy and love and contentment. She had been blessed beyond measure, not in spite of her blindness, but in the wholeness of her life, fully lived. "I love you, Quade Harrison," she said into the gathering darkness. "I love you, Winona Harrison," he replied. "More today than yesterday and less than I will tomorrow. That is how it works, you know. Love keeps growing if you tend it right. We have tended it well. We have." Inside, they prepared a simple supper and ate by lamplight, talking about small things and large, about memories and hopes, about their children and grandchildren and the great-grandchildren who were starting to arrive. "We have built something that will last," Quade said. "Not just the ranch, but the family, the values we have taught, the love we have shown. That will go on long after we are gone." "I hope so," Winona said. "I hope they remember that love is the most important thing, that seeing with your heart matters more than seeing with your eyes." "They will remember. We will make sure of it." Years passed, and Quade and Winona grew older together, their bodies slowing but their love undiminished. Quade's hair turned white, and Winona's face creased with wrinkles, but they remained devoted to each other, companions and lovers and best friends. On a cool morning in October of 1925, when Winona was 65 and Quade was 69, they woke to find frost on the ground and a brilliant blue sky overhead. "Tell me about the sunrise," Winona said, as she had said almost every morning for more than 40 years. Quade took her hand and led her to the porch. The air was cold and sharp, scented with wood smoke and fallen leaves. "The sun is just coming up," Quade said softly. "The sky is pink and gold, and the frost is sparkling like diamonds scattered across the grass. The leaves on the trees are brilliant red and orange and yellow, and they are glowing in the morning light like they are on fire. Everything is beautiful, Winona. Everything is touched with gold. I can feel the warmth of the sun on my face," Winona said. "That is how I know it is there." "And I can see your smile," Quade said. "That is how I know you are happy." "I am happy. I have always been happy with you." They stood together in the golden morning light, two souls who had found each other against all odds and built a love that had weathered every storm. The ranch stretched out around them, a legacy of hard work and faith and devotion. Their family was scattered across Oklahoma now, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, all carrying forward the values Quade and Winona had instilled. Inside the main ranch house, Quincy was already starting his day, managing the operation with the same care and skill his parents had shown. His own children were grown now, some working the ranch, others pursuing different paths, but all of them rooted in the foundation of love and family that Quade and Winona had built. As the sun climbed higher, Quade and Winona went inside for breakfast. They moved slowly now, their bodies aged but their spirits still strong. They sat at the table they had shared for decades, eating simple food and talking about the day ahead. "I thought we might visit Willa this afternoon," Quade said. She mentioned she has a new student who is blind, and she thought maybe you could talk to the child, give her some encouragement. I would like that, Winona said. I remember how alone I felt as a child, how different. If I can help someone feel less alone, I want to do it. So that afternoon, they drove to Tahlequah in Quincy's automobile, a concession to modernity that Quade had resisted for years, but finally accepted when his knees made riding horses too painful. Winona held tight to the door handle, unused to the speed and noise of the machine, but trusting Quade's assurance that it was safe. At the school, Willa met them with a warm hug. She was 42 now, still teaching, still unmarried and content with her life. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Little Sarah is only 7, and she is struggling. Her parents do not know how to help her, and she is so angry about being different." Winona understood that anger, remembered feeling it herself as a child. She sat with Sarah in Willa's classroom and let the child pour out her frustration and fear. "I will never be able to do anything," Sarah said, her voice fierce with unshed tears. "I cannot see to read or write or play like other children. I am useless." "You are not useless," Winona said firmly. "You are different, and different can be hard, but it can also be good. There are so many things you can do, Sarah. You can learn to read with your fingers in a system called Braille. You can learn to navigate by sound and touch. You can learn to do almost anything if you are determined enough." "But I will never see," Sarah said. "No, you will not. But you will experience the world in other ways. You will hear things that sighted people miss. You will feel textures and temperatures that others ignore. You will know people by their voices, by the way they move, by how they make you feel. And if you are very lucky, you will find someone who will describe the world to you, who will paint pictures with words, like your husband does. Yes, my husband has been my eyes for more than 40 years. He describes the sunrise and the sunset, the colors of flowers and the faces of our grandchildren. He makes me see with my heart what I cannot see with my eyes." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Do you think I could find someone like that?" "I think if you live your life fully, if you do not let fear hold you back, you will find all kinds of good things. Maybe someone to describe the world to you, maybe not. But you will find purpose and meaning and joy if you are brave enough to look for them." After their visit, Quade and Winona drove back to the ranch in the golden light of late afternoon. Quade described the landscape as they passed through it, the rolling hills and autumn trees, the cattle grazing in distant pastures, the sky beginning to turn pink with the approaching sunset. "You were wonderful with that child," he said. "You gave her hope." "I gave her truth," Winona said. "Her life will not be easy, but it can be good. I wanted her to know that." "You have had a good life, have you not? The best life," Winona said. "Far better than I ever dreamed possible when I stepped off that train in Tahlequah all those years ago." That evening they sat on their porch and watched the sunset together, Quade describing every color, every shift of light, until the sky faded to purple and the stars began to appear. "Tell me about the stars," Winona said. "They are brilliant tonight, thousands of them scattered across the sky like someone threw handfuls of diamonds into the darkness. The Milky Way is visible, that river of stars flowing across the heavens. It is beautiful, Winona. The whole universe is on display. I am glad you can see it for both of us. I am glad I get to share it with you." They went inside when the night grew cold, and they prepared for bed in the familiar rituals of a long marriage. Quade helped Winona with the buttons she could no longer quite manage, and Winona smoothed the liniment into Quade's aching joints. They climbed into bed together, and Quade pulled Winona close. "I was thinking today," he said quietly, "about how different my life would be if you had never come to Tahlequah. If you had married Quinton like you planned, or if you had gone back to Philadelphia. I would have missed everything that matters." "I would have missed it too," Winona said. "You are my whole world, Quad. You and the family we built and this life we share. Promise me something, anything. When I am gone, do not stop living. Keep going. Keep finding joy. Keep seeing the beauty in the world even if I am not there to describe it anymore." "Do not talk about being gone," Winona said. "We have years left. We have today," Quad said, "and that is enough, but promise me anyway." "I promise," Winona said, "though I hope I never have to keep that promise. But mortality is patient and inevitable, and in the spring of 1928, Quad caught a cold that settled into pneumonia. He fought it for 2 weeks, stubbornly refusing to give in, but his body was old and tired, and on a quiet April morning he slipped away with Winona holding his hand. His last words were about a sunrise. "The sky is pink," he whispered. "Pink and gold, so beautiful. Can you see it, Winona?" "I see it," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I see it through your eyes, my love, I always have." He smiled, squeezed her hand one last time, and was gone. The ranch grieved with Winona. Quincy and his family, Willa, the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, the ranch hands who had known Quad for years, all mourned the loss of a good man. They buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a view of the eastern horizon where he had watched thousands of sunrises. Winona stood at his grave, feeling the warmth of the spring sun on her face, listening to the wind in the grass, and thought about the promise she had made. To keep living, to keep finding joy, to keep seeing beauty even without Quad to describe it. It was the hardest promise she had ever made, but she was determined to keep it. In the months that followed, Winona learned to live without Quad's constant presence. She moved into the main ranch house with Quincy and his wife, and she kept herself busy helping with the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, teaching them the things she knew, sharing stories about their grandfather. Every morning she went out to the porch, and she stood facing east, feeling the sun rise even though no one described it to her anymore. And every morning she heard Quad's voice in her memory, painting the sky in words, telling her about pink and gold and the way the light touched everything. One morning in early summer, her great-grandson Tommy, age 8, came out and stood beside her. "Grandma Winona, what are you doing?" "I am feeling the sunrise." "Great-grandpa Quad used to describe the sunrises to you, did he not?" "He did. Every single morning for more than 40 years. Tommy was quiet for a moment, then he said, "Would you like me to describe it to you?" Winona's heart swelled. "I would like that very much." Tommy cleared his throat importantly. "The sky is pink, Grandma, really pink like roses, and there is some orange too like pumpkins. And the sun is coming up over the hills, and it is super bright and yellow. Everything looks pretty." "That is a beautiful description, Tommy. Thank you. I can do it again tomorrow if you want." "I would love that." And so a new tradition began. Tommy described the sunrise to Winona almost every morning, and as he grew older, his descriptions became more detailed, more poetic, echoing the gift Quad had given her. Other great-grandchildren joined in, taking turns describing the world to Winona, telling her about flowers and animals and the changing seasons. They did it out of love, wanting to honor their great-grandfather's memory, wanting to help their great-grandmother see. Winona lived to be 83 years old, surrounded by family, loved and cherished until the end. On a quiet morning in November of 1943, she passed peacefully in her sleep, and they buried her beside Quad on the hill overlooking the ranch. At the funeral, Tommy, now a young man of 26, stood before the assembled family and friends and told the story of the blind mail-order bride and the cowboy who described the sunrise until she smiled. "They taught us what love looks like," he said. "Not the easy kind of love, but the deep, enduring kind that grows stronger through the years. They taught us to see beauty in unexpected places, to find joy even in hardship, to never give up on each other or ourselves. Great-grandpa Quade made the world visible to great-grandma Winona through his words, and she made his world meaningful through her love. Together, they built something that will last forever in the hearts of this family. The Double H Ranch continued to thrive for generations, passed down through Quincy's line, a testament to the foundation Quade and Winona had built. Their story became family legend, told and retold to each new generation, a reminder of where they came from and what mattered most. And every morning, somewhere on that ranch, someone would stand facing east and describe the sunrise, carrying on the tradition that had begun so many years ago when a cowboy decided to paint the world in words for a blind woman, and discovered that in doing so, he had found his own vision of what love could be. The sky would turn pink and gold, the sun would rise over the hills, and somewhere in the eternal rhythm of day following night, Quade and Winona's love continued to shine, bright and enduring as the Oklahoma sunrise they had shared for so many years.